Who was the first ever chess world champion? Well, it was a guy named William Steinitz. This is his match against Mikhail Chigorin that resulted in a brilliant sacrifice 7-move checkmate. You don't get checkmates all too often in world championship matches. I think the only other one was Alyekin, and since then there's never been a checkmate because now people resign. They're like, I don't want my feelings hurt. I see it, you see it. Let's not have it on the board. Let's not let the people see it. So, this game is amazing. What is William Steinitz famous for? Well, definitely rook endgames. They've both created theory, right? Chigorin has lines in the Ruy Lopez, etc. Steinitz was a big theoretician in chess as well. And Steinitz is a fascinating player because he was kind of one of the first players to transition from aggressive attacking bar chess to positional chess. Back then, people even began to call him a coward for the way he played the game and his opinion on how the game should be played. But of course, he defended himself. Right back then, it was like, I'm better than you. And then they were like, no, I'm better than you. You know, they stand on business. Nowadays, they don't speak their minds like they used to. They're like, I'm going to lose my job. People aren't going to like me. Wham, wham. Back then, it wasn't like that. These people were good people. Or that's good people isn't the right word, but they were real people. You could say that, right? Not robots. Let's leave it at that. So this game is going to teach you a few things. It's going to show you the transition of attacking aggressive bar chess to positional chess. It's going to show a cool checkmate in 7, and it's going to show an opening that you guys should try out and is quite fascinating. It's delayed castling. It's a pianissimo, and it's something good to play against the Ruy Lopez, or in playing the Ruy Lopez. I'll show you what I mean. It's kind of a systems-based opening, right? Going pawn to d3. Sometimes you leave the bishop on f1. In this line, we're going bishop to b5. But you delay castling, and there's so many intricacies in the Spanish, but it's a lot less intricate in this opening, and I'll just show you what I mean. Right, knight f1. Why would you delay castling? Well, the reason you're delaying castling is it leaves your position more flexible on the queen side, on the king side. You're going to see what your opponent wants to do. You open up the bishop first. The knight can go to e3, g3, can jump into d5. Sometimes you get h3, knight h2. Right, a lot of Fabiano and Magnus games play like this. I know Fabi's really good with this knight f1 stuff, but I've always seen games where he's castled. Steinitz, in this case, is not castled. So black actually castles first, and we get bishop to a4. You might be like, that's a weird move. Like, why would he not damage the pawn structure? And well, you can damage the pawn structure, but it's going to allow black, after not losing this pawn, to re-challenge the center like so, and then maybe even undouble his pawns. And his light squared bishop can actually be good on these two diagonals on the queen side, aiming in on the king side. But of course, it's a way to play. But he preemptively stepped back, right? Preemptive thinking. It wasn't all too common back then. It's almost like prophylactics. And the idea of this move is that he wants to go to c2 and play for d4 to aim in on the king like this, or to aim in on the king on b3 to g8. a2 to g8, that is, rather. We get knight to d7. All right. Is Chigorin playing positional chess as well? What could he be planning? So he blocks the bishop temporarily, but you know he doesn't want to leave this knight on d7. This knight arguably wants to come to b6 or c5 to gain a tempo on this light squared bishop. Maybe he's going to push the pawn on the f-file. If white has nothing to say about it, we shall see. We get knight e3, all right, so black let go of d5, so white tries to jump in to d5, and maybe he wants to castle soon. We get knight to c5. Now, not a great move. Why is knight to c5 not a great move? I'll put on the moves, the emblems, or whatever you want to call them. Move classifications. You guys don't care, but I care. I want to think of the words. So knight to c5, it aims at the bishop on a4, but the reason it's not a great move is because, is this bishop doing anything on a4? Well, kind of not, right? Because he concluded that he didn't want to take the knight. So it brings it to a better square. This is where he wanted it all along. And now, not only are you going to play what you wanted to play, you're going to play it with tempo, right? And that's how your position rolls forward in chess. We get knight to e6, okay, a good route. He's coming to f4, so they're playing well with their knights. It is a world championship match at the end of the day, so they're pretty good. think it was played in 1882, 1890, 18 something. 1892. Let's go. H4. All right. So many people are like, okay, this knight wants to come to F4. But do you really care if that knight comes to F4? You shouldn't. Because if the knight comes to F4, it's not even aiming at G2. And you could also just play G3 once it comes to F4. But you see, if you play G3 first, it's kind of just too passive. You don't want passivity, right? Then they could strike with F5 and you can't gain any tempo. And then you kind of created a hook in essence, possibly. And there's light scored holes in your position. So Steinitz strikes right away, right? Flank pawns are very fast. And this is the advantage of not having castled yet, because his rook is still on the flank file, and since black is castled, the flank file can be used as an aggressor rather than just defensive measures. We get knight e7, but black's position is kind of clogged, I would argue. h5. That's a fast flank pawn, is it not? It is. We get pawn to d5. All right, good. So the principle is when your opponent is striking on one end of the board, like a flank, you strike in the center, kind of to force them to reconvene, regroup. That's the word I was looking at, their pieces. So they can't just roll forward their attack, right? Because if they don't respond to your ideas, then that's tunnel vision and bad things could happen. But he does just that. H takes G6. Can. Not always, but may sometimes happen. You can take with either pawn. I think taking with the H pawn is better, but he takes with the F pawn. Okay, maybe he wants to run his king. Maybe he just wanted the open F file, more likely. We get E takes D5, knight takes D5, but why did this help white? The reason this helped white is because look at this diagonal. Remember that diagonal when I asked you to pause the video and find the checkmate in 7. It's a nice diagonal. We get knight takes, queen takes, right? You just don't love that. You just don't love that. It doesn't look great for his opponent. Prediction of the year, bishop to b3, gaining yet another tempo, and even though the queen gets out of the way, the knight is still pinned. Now, what do? Plays the best move, queen e2. Not so much to grab this pawn, because then black will grab this pawn, but maybe he's like, maybe I don't want to castle on the king side. Maybe I want to castle on the queen side. There's also another really bold idea that he plays that I love, even though it's not engine approved. You know us, we don't really care about what the engine has to say. Ruins the beauty. Bishop to d7, bishop to e3. Just a development move, and we get king to h8. So it makes sense. He's stepping out of the way of the pin. But if you solve your chess.com tactics, you know that could not be great. Castles queenside. Love it. So he castled into a pin, and it looks a little scary, but he's cool, calm, and collected, so that's how you should behave. We get rook A to E8 and queen to F1. So computer calls it a mistake. What did the computer want? The computer wanted queen D2, queen C2. I think queen D2 makes more sense. But queen F1 is a beautiful idea. He found his winning idea when he played this move. And believe it or not, in 9 moves, black is going to get checkmated. And he already had the idea in his head, I am positive. So why is queen F1 a mistake? Well, the only move black has for semi-equality is h5. Is anybody playing h5? Yes, some people are playing h5. But it's a very hard move to play because g5 is a big hole. You create a backwards pawn. This king looks really just very loose, and it looks quite hard to hold for black in the long term. Black struck on the opposite end of the board. He went pawn to a5. So look at this. Remember when white played h4 and black played d5? Well, now black plays a5 and white plays d4. See, strike on the flank, strike in the center. It's a very common chess principle. Oftentimes, it's the best move. Black doesn't have time to play something like a4 because we're going to gain a tempo with fork. We're threatening another tempo. We easily win that game. So we get e takes d4. What do you take back with? Is it an open or a closed board? It's an open board. So don't take with the bishop, because if you take with the bishop, you lose your bishop pair on the open board. And look at that. All of a sudden, black is better. Isn't that crazy how quickly the dynamic of the game can change? Bishop pair, open board. Black is fine. So take with the knight. Leave your bishop on the board. We get bishop takes d4, the best move. And now what do you take with? So many people might be like, okay, bishop takes, knight takes, rook takes, and we're going to double up, we're going to win. But this is a position that you can defend as black, right? If you're with the black pieces and you're choosing someone to defend the position, modern day times, probably Nakamura, right? He'd be like, oh my goodness, this is easy. I can defend this because he's just a really good defensive player. But what did black miss? Black missed rook takes d4. So this is the first sacrifice. He's sacrificing the exchange. He's threatening to double up with tempo. Chigorin didn't think he could hold that position, so he took with the knight. And now most people would take with the bishop. But that's not the correct move. It's the second best move, but we are at the stage of the game where Steinitz unleashed a checkmate in 7, and I would like you guys to find it. Pause the video. The first move of the sequence is rook takes h7. Remember the motif, right? This is a forcing move. That's why you guys can calculate it, because it's a forcing sequence, essentially. We get king takes. Only one winning move. Remember when he put this queen on f1? Wild. He definitely was thinking of rook takes h7 because afterwards you have queen h1, right? Even if it's not on the board, you see the idea and then you try to set it up. You're not focusing on it too much, but when the time is right, you've already thought of it, so it surfaces when the time is right. That's how these beautiful sequences arise under the radar for your opponent. So this bishop is covering g8, very important. So black has to go king to g7. Now again, you take the knight, sure. But then you're losing because of rook f6, and there's too much of a material advantage, so don't do that. So bishop to h6. The point is, if king h7, this is just checkmate. Yes, they could go bishop h3, but then you take, and it's just mate because these bishops cover everything. So now we get the walk of shame. We get king to f6, queen to h4 check. If pawn g5, queen g5 is mate in 1. So king e5, queen takes d4 check, king to f5, and how do you end this game? There's two ways to end this game. There is a queen way and a pawn way. Pawn g4 would be savage. Maybe he was a gentleman, so he went queen to f4. And that is a checkmate in the 1882 World Chess Championship match. Have you guys ever seen it? This is fun chess. This was the turn of an era. Chigorin never became world champion. Steinitz was the first world champion. They played twice. Chigorin lost both matches. So safe to say Steinitz was probably the better player. Thank you as always for watching. I will see you guys next time. Peace. Boom.